welcome everybody. I'm excited to see your faces. Haven't had the opportunity to do much of that in the recent past, but good to see everybody today. Dr. Nathan Gerowitz, I'm pretty sure everyone here is familiar with him. Him and I actually met, when was it? MLS 1 in May here in Davenport, I believe.
Sounds about right.
And, from the second I met him, I just knew this guy had a huge heart. He was there to help everyone that was there, and just absolutely loved his presence. Had an opportunity to go out to dinner with him a couple times, and just really enjoyed the company. And I've been communicating with him a couple different times now to try to get some type of thing together so he can spread some of that knowledge that he has for us. And here's the first go at it. So go ahead, Nathan, and give everybody your introduction spiel and
Sure.
into it.
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for showing up. I realize I'm sure everyone had to cancel theater tickets and change travel plans, and so I really appreciate it. No, it's one of the blessings of the current situation we're in is that we're all finding ways to connect with each other, which is really lovely. And I'm very sad. I'm very happy about that. I'm very sad I did not buy stock in Zoom 2 months ago, but you'll live, you'll learn. So my name is Dr. Nathan Gerowitz. I am a family chiropractor practicing in the Chicagoland area. I graduated from Life University in 2017. And then I had a very, very short associateship in Southern California, and then moved home and opened up my own practice for about $2,000 or so, or less, and opened it up in my hometown. So I've both traveled cross country, practiced on both coasts, and then found myself practicing back in the Chicagoland area. And I'm going to be celebrating my second practice anniversary in May 7th, so a little under a month. In my practice, I take care of pregnant moms, babies, toddlers, all the way up to people in their 80s and 90s. We were joking before the call that I lovingly use a blending of different techniques and different approaches depending on how the person needs me to show up for them that day. There we go. I've been blessed to be on the MLS teaching staff for, it was 2015. So about 5 or 6 years. It was either 2014, 2015 that I started serving on the teaching staff. So somewhere around there. So between 5 and 6 years that I've been on staff. I think that's how I've met most of you, was at an MLS seminar. It is one of the core foundations of how I serve people and how I am as a person. So, and I'm sure we'll get into that somewhere in here. And other than that, I'm glad to be here and excited to share with y'all.
We're glad to have you. 100%.
Thank you. Alrighty. Tyler, do you want to kick it off? I know we talked about a couple questions that you had that you thought would serve everybody pretty well, and then we can kind of just go wherever.
Yeah, of course. So my burning question, I'm working through trying to draw up just my initial plans for a practice right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to make all these decisions, and I'm just wondering, how do you put the philosophy into your everyday practice decisions?
Great question. I feel like it'd be helpful if we talk about chiropractic philosophy in general first, and then we'll talk about how do we apply it. So, sorry, someone just messaged me and I got distracted. I had a squirrel moment. So, I must need to get adjusted. So, chiropractic philosophy, depending on how you learn it, how you're first exposed to it, there's a number of different ways with which to view it, with which to look at it. However, it is all coming from the same spot, the same place, the same perspective, which is that we live in an organized universe. That's really what the major premise says. That there is an organization, there's an intelligence to the way the universe works. And we can look at that at the macro, or we can look at that at the micro. And we'll do both. There's an organization to the way the planets move throughout the solar system. There's an organization to the way that the currents work around the Earth. There's a connection between all of that, between everything. What's beautiful, what I find so beautiful about chiropractic philosophy is that it serves as a bridge. Because when I was younger, so I was a biology major in undergrad, so a lot of hardcore science classes, biology, chemistry, physics, all the fun stuff that I'm sure most people on this call have also enjoyed. And it seemed as though there was some sort of split where I had to choose between the scientific part of myself, the part that likes science, that likes to know the facts and the figures and that sort of quest for knowledge, and the more spiritual aspects of myself, that deep calling or yearning I always sort of felt that, and it always seemed like they were opposed. There was a dichotomy, that you had to pick one or the other. You couldn't have both. However, chiropractic really serves as a bridge. The philosophical part of chiropractic serves as a bridge between those two, because it works whether you have devout religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs. If you're an atheist, it's still, the logic of it is still there. And what's very interesting is that chiropractic philosophy said from the very beginning, everything's connected. Every possible thing is connected, and and it's not willy-nilly. There is an intelligence to it, to the way that it is set up. There's some organizing principle. Religion has said that for thousands of years. Quantum physics has been saying that since the 1920s, 1930s. Modern day physics is continuing to say that. So it really blends these two worlds. And when you start applying that further down, one of the extrapolations from the major premise of chiropractic is that we live in an intelligent universe, and therefore we can trust the universe. So you asked about how do I apply the philosophy in an everyday practice? Is that a fair way of stating your question?
Yep, definitely.
Nowhere on my paperwork and nowhere in my practice do I use the term car accident. I use the term collision, impact. How was your car hit? I say those things. However, when someone comes in with immense amounts of pain or trauma in their life, in their history, in their past, I choose to view it that their soul and the universe knew what it was doing in that. And I can still have deep and profound compassion for the person in front of me. You know, who here on the call has ever had something traumatic or downright horrific happen to them in their lives? I know I'm not the only one. And so good. None of us are alone in that. Alrighty, cool. We're on the right Zoom call. It is possible for deep meaning to come out of that. And that is one of the aspects that I view chiropractic as a major tool for. The other thing that the basis in our perspective, in our philosophy, in the ideals of chiropractic is it gives me something to come back to. So Zach is the gentleman in bright yellow on the call that you guys may be able to see. He's also in practice and MLS staff member, amazing person, soul brother. He, I'm sure, would attest to this just like I have. There are days in practice that are kind of some butt kickers. There are days that it is challenging. There are days that the last 2 months has been very challenging for a lot of different reasons. But there are even, when there aren't global catastrophes happening, there are days that are challenging, or people will ask questions. So people ask, why is this going on, or what do you think? And I will be able to come back to the chiropractic philosophy that not only is there an intelligence in the universe, there's life is intelligent. Life knows what it's doing. So, for example, I had someone earlier today who came in for the first time in about 8 weeks. Last time I saw her, she had broken her toe, and she had a boot on, and she now no longer has the boot on. Yay. She had a lot of swelling in the foot, and she's like, what do you think? Is it a problem? Is it a thing? So before I answered, I paused, I took a breath, and I asked myself, why would this make sense? Why would there still be swelling in the foot? What about the body? Why would the body choose to do this? Which is a question that if I just reacted, I might try and spout off all kinds of facts and figures and logic, as opposed to going, let's just get still for a moment. Why would this make sense? And then lo and behold, I started talking about the sequelae of inflammation, which is, something I really thought I purged out of my brain after boards. So it's a matter of, there's a blending of also the chiropractic philosophy and our own personal philosophy. So many people who come to chiropractic school came because they had some trauma in their life, and chiropractic helped them, whether it was blowing out their back weightlifting, or asthma as a child, or severe allergies, or pick your favorite, whatever it was for you potentially on the call. I didn't have that, and I'm not inviting that into my life. My uncle was a chiropractor. I've been raised getting adjusted. I've been adjusted, I think, since I was about 1. So part of my own personal philosophy is that getting adjusted makes your life better. It's a very simple idea. Because I choose to look at chiropractic not only, when Didi first started piecing it together and channeling it, he thought he found the cure for deafness. They thought he found the cure for heart issues. And he extrapolated. So do I know that chiropractic helps with specific conditions? Yes. Do I also know that it enhances life? Absolutely. That may change my care recommendations. I'm very honest with people that, early on, when they start with care with me, I'll say, this is what we're going to do to put out the fire. This is our initial plan. At a certain point, we're going to have a conversation about a vitality option. How do we continue to have you have the greatest level of health and awareness and connection throughout the course of your life? We'll get there eventually, So it allows me to frame my conversations in such a way, because I know and have the experience, not only for myself, but my family members, that when you get adjusted consistently, your body works better. You're more connected. It is much easier to have a place of peace and ease in yourself. And gang, here's the deal. If we want peace and ease in the outer world, we have to first have it in our inner world. I muted myself, darn. And if anyone has any questions or comments or things that they want me to follow up on, you can throw it in the chat. You can maybe raise your hand or something. We'll figure it out. Do you guys want me to keep?
So, Dr. Nathan.
Yes, sir.
So, if why is it like being in practice? Like, do you find it difficult to demonstrate philosophy in a way that your patients can understand? So, I think it's some kind of voodoo or any kind of thing like that. Like how many things like.
Phenomenal question, my friend. I chuckle because there are some practice members who call me their wizard. I do not promote myself that way. I do not market myself that way. I just roll with it. There is a certain aspect of things that, there's a lot of scientific explanation for how we do what we do. There's a lot of spiritual and energetic explanation of how we do what we do. Why? Because they're the same thing. Some people who are more scientifically inclined, you all know this. You've been people for a good number of years. You've been in relationships with other people for a good number of years. You know how to read people, and you'll get better and better over time. So you start to develop a sense of, do I need to talk to them with a little more science, a little more energetic talk? Is there a balancing between the two? And also sometimes when I have someone who's really into the science, I'll zoom out a little bit. And they'll say, and I know they want me to go deep into the fascial network and the tensegrity matrix and the neural activation. about why did this lead to this, and why did I adjust here, and how did adjusting my atlas make my walking better? And I'll just say, it's almost like it's all connected, isn't it? You know, one key I think to success is to keep things simple. And Nicholas, I will absolutely acknowledge that there are sometimes that it's a little tiring to say the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. However, what I keep reminding myself is, I was blessed to be born into a family that was relatively naturally minded. We still went to our pediatrician when we were kids too, and then I went to chiropractic school and really was able to shift my perspective, change my belief systems around health, on healing, on wellness and well-being. And that was pouring myself into that process for 4 years where I was fully immersed in it. And how long did it take me to do that? And how much am I still doing that day to day? So I remind myself that this is a process like anything else. It takes time. And it's a lot like, you guys remember in chemistry labs, we would have those titration things where we'd have to like drip, 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 drip. John's shaking his head no. He's blocked it out. The little tiny drips, and then all of a sudden the entire mixture changes and it turns to like bright purple when it was clear before. Which drip was the most important? They all were. Which adjustment is the most important? They all are. So I remind myself little by little, little by little. My personal coach explains to me, like, you got to almost pretend like everybody's in kindergarten. We're used to having these immense philosophical, scientific questions about the way the consciousness infuses in and creates matter and how energy flows this way, when most people are almost unaware that their brain controls other parts of their body and that nerves are how the signals get there. So it's a matter of acknowledging that there's a basic foundation that sometimes it takes time for people to not only to know, but to really anchor into themselves. You guys probably have been to seminars before. I'll use you guys as easy examples. You guys have probably been to seminars and you conceptually get what someone's talking about. Or you may even think like, this is a conceptual, like the concept of this makes sense, but the actual practice of it makes no sense whatsoever. You have to like practice with it and integrate it and give it time. And then the intellectual knowledge of it makes sense for a while, and then all of a sudden you realize you're doing it almost by intuition and you don't have to think about it. It's becoming second nature, just like learning how to drive. When you first learn how to drive, you might know like, okay, I know the steering wheel does the steery thing and I know some of the pedals do different things, but then you have to learn how to put it from park into drive, give it some gas, turn the wheel. And this is all if you have an automatic transmission, let alone if you know how to drive manual. And now all of us on the call can easily drive down the highway at 80 miles an hour while thinking about how consciousness infuses itself into a dense vibration of matter. So, like anything else, allow the people that you serve weeks to months to years to get it. And straight up, some of them may never get it, and that's okay. They're allowed to not get it. What I choose to do, and there are some days I do it really well, and there are some days that I need to give myself grace on this one, is I let people have the time for their own evolution at their pace. I hold point. I hold myself I hold my sacred space. I hold the potential for them if they can't hold it themselves, while being unattached to them, to needing them to get it. If they continue to show up and get cleared out, I know that it will happen little by little. It may not happen at the rate my ego really wants it to happen, but I know that it will happen. It just may take time.
Yep, I have another question. So,
like the first one was great. Let's do another.
Yeah, but so, I have some people that ask me, why do, if I go to an MLS seminar, why do I need to keep taking over and over again?
Sure.
Why? And, I know you have been to so many seminars, and what brings you to go over and over again? Like,
sure.
And why do you choose MLS? for the younger people, especially in the school, like why MLS?
Sure.
And why is it so important and be such an integral part in your adjusting life?
Got it. So there are a couple different questions in there, and I will do my best to answer as many of them as I can get my hands on. Let me back up for a moment. For anyone who is on the call who may not know, MLS was birthed out of the idea or out of the awareness that chiropractic is one of the few professions that since its inception in early days, the skill level has not rapidly increased. It has either stayed the same or arguably gone down. MLS was a chiropractic movement started in the early 1980s by a gentleman named Arno Bernier. And I know a few of you have met Arno. My hope is that you all get to meet him eventually. And Arno started the MLS movement with a desire and a keen understanding of how powerful chiropractic is when it's applied and when it's delivered in a masterful way. So there are some core principles of how the MLS the adjusting approach looks. It promotes adjusting the entire adjusting with an awareness of the entire neurospinal system, including the muscles, the ligaments, the fascia, the meninges, the bones, and the neurology within, and adjusting it from a place of peace and ease. Life is traumatic enough. Life is stressful enough. The adjustment in an ideal place will not increase the stress or the chaos in the system and the chaos in the body in an attempt to lower the chaos. If we can hold people, their neurology, their bodies in a place of peace and ease, and deliver an adjustment with precision, focus, speed when necessary, more strength when necessary, and a deep, deep presence, it is far more likely that their body will be able to use that force to create the exponential changes that are possible with a chiropractic adjustment. That little by little process that I was describing to Nicholas earlier can be accelerated rapidly. I learned about Arno, learned about MLS because my student clinician at Life University was Boo Bernier, Arno's son. So as you can imagine, I got spoiled in a hurry. I went home after my first quarter in school, and as I came back, I was thinking, I wonder if I could ask Boo to show me some stuff. I mean, clearly he's got some skill. He's very skilled. Well, that I know who he was. And so I was invited to start attending or having the opportunity to learn about MLS. And immediately the concept, just the philosophy of approaching a person from a place of stillness, of as much inner peace as we can have, in a gentle, honoring way that really expressed our love for life, our love for the person on the table, and wanting to be of deep service to them, not only for their physiological healing, but for their deep core healing and reconnection. It was almost like, shut up and take my money. For me, it resonated immediately. And I'm going to use a term that I've heard used to describe adjustments that may be lacking a little specificity, or maybe just sort of more angling towards a manipulation or gross manipulation, which is the pop and pray and hope that they pay. It's very easy to make a joint pop. Ta-da! To be able to adjust someone who is going through end-stage cancer, who is suicidal, to approach a mom who is pregnant for the first time and kind of freaked out about it, or who is 38 weeks pregnant and breech, or a child who has severe ADHD, requires, in my opinion, now you guys are all subjecting yourself to the world I live in at the moment, a certain degree of walking the path of mastery. And that's an expression that we use in MLS a lot. Now, the reason we call it the path of mastery is that it does not have a specific end. There's a line in a song that I love. It's by Nako and Medicine for the People. If you haven't looked them up, highly recommend them. They're great. And it's that the line is, I am no master, I know nothing, but I am a servant and I know something. So with regards to why did MLS did I gravitate towards it? It allows me a core foundation of both physical skills and inner skills, and I'll cover them both in a moment, to be able to serve people at a high level and to continually be improving. There's a chiropractor I know named Tim Young. I imagine some of you guys have met him, and I've known him before I was a freshman in college. And I heard him say one time that he wants every adjustment to be better than the last one. Every adjustment he gives, he wants to be better than the last. I heard that from him, and I remember thinking to myself, yeah, why wouldn't I? Especially with something as important as someone's health and their life. So there are certain physical foundational skills that frankly just never get old. I'm in practice now. I've served on mission trips across the world. I've adjusted thousands of people at this point in my career, this point in my time frame. And there are certain days in practice that I'll find myself really tuning in to a aspect. So for most of us have been to an MLS seminar. One of the foundational steps that we teach when adjusting the cervicals is to have your support hand, have your thumb by their temple. Probably about a month ago, 2 months ago when I was on a mission trip in Nicaragua, I realized not only does that help support and help me dial into have them dial into a place of peace and ease, it lets them know they're supported and loved and feel that and build that trust with me as the practitioner and that trust for them as their body. And it's a thumb position. It's where do I put my thumb? But that attention to detail, that focus, as I was dialing that in, it allowed for people to have deeper levels of neurological clearing happen, deeper levels of healing possible. And that's one thing we talk about in a weekend of skills, a weekend of training. So that's the sort of the aspect of the physical skills. There's always a way to improve that. And in my opinion, the people that any of us would look at and consider master adjusters are the people that are consciously or unconsciously dedicated and devoted to increasing their skill level and not settling at any point, knowing that there's always room to improve, and also honoring where we're at. One of the common traps as a chiropractic student and a chiropractor is to play the comparison game. And if I compare myself to anyone, whether I think they're way above me or I'm way above them, if I look at somebody and think, oh my God, he's amazing at adjusting, or she's so powerful with her presence, then consciously or unconsciously, I'm looking at people who I consider other people and being like, I'm so far above them. And it doesn't serve anyone. It comes from a place of scarcity. And it's time for us to let go of the scarcity game. One of the other things that that I sort of hinted at in answering Nicholas's question. By the way, I know this is a long walk for hopefully a good drink of water and a nice view. And if it's not, just raise your hand and interrupt me with another question. There's the physical work. There's the physical training within the MLS movement. There's also a much deeper inner work. So just because of the fact that you're on this call, that you're taking time out of your days to listen to someone you may or may not know, I'd be willing to put money on the idea that you all are gravitated towards chiropractic because you wanted to help people, and you wanted to be of service to people. And within that mindset, within that focus, when someone lays down on our table or comes into our office or just calls us or what needs our support, our help, our service, it's not about us. It's about them. I had someone ask me, how do you know what to do? And my response was, I don't always know the way, but I know there is a way, and I'll find it with the person. If they're showing up, I will show up for them. Or as I've lovingly said to at least I think one or two people on the call, I will walk to the gates of your inner hell with you. I will hold your hand the whole way. I will not drag you there, though. That's a matter of having boundaries. And because it's not about us, it becomes crucially about us, about the work we've done. There's an expression in chiropractic called be the hollow bone. What that translates to is, how do I hollow myself out? How do I clear the inner blockages, our inner stuff that we've all got stuff. If you don't have any, and you want some, I got some to lend to you, no problem. Not only do we all have our stuff, chiropractic has its stuff. There's a lot of drama in our profession. I say with deep love for this profession, there's some drama here that isn't serving us. It's a matter of healing, doing our own inner healing work for ourselves, and gaining the knowledge, the appreciation for ourselves, for life, for both the light and the shadow within ourselves, so that way when someone comes to us, we can be that clear vessel, that hollow bone for them. And there's a lot of different avenues that can take. It's part of why you hang out with enough chiropractors, sooner or later, one of them will recommend a book. I know I will apologize in advance. I will recommend some books on this call sooner or later. Don't know what they are yet, but if you hang out with a chiropractor for enough time, they will recommend a book for you to read, because it's what may have helped them crucially clear that piece that was needy. That when we come from our needs versus our values, when we come from a need for appreciation, for attention, for meaning, versus coming from a value of connection, a value of service. It's a matter of being from a high vibration or a low vibration. Or put another way, we can be in love or fear. We cannot do them both simultaneously, and they will have drastically different outcomes on our ability to serve people, on our practices, on our relationships, and on our lives. So that inner work that I'm talking about is, how do you shift yourself inwardly to that place of love, connection, compassion, and courage, and let go of fear, scarcity, abandonment, those types of things. And the more work we do in that, the physical act of adjusting becomes easier. And it's still vitally important to continue to train the physical aspects, which is why I recommend going to a seminar multiple times. And Nicholas alluded to this, just so everyone understands the sort of joke that he made. When I was in school, counting workshops, seminars, philosophy talks, weekend things, you lump them all together, and I did somewhere around 90 seminars, workshops, play shops throughout my time in chiropractic school. I don't necessarily advocate for that. However, what I will say is that being in chiropractic school, you have access to so many things that, frankly, it becomes more challenging once you get out. Becomes more challenging once you graduate. So my encouragement would be to utilize this beautiful opportunity as best as possible, while still honoring yourselves and your own journeys. And to develop, as Arno called it, there's the academic curriculum, which is getting through school, passing boards, getting a license. That's the job. That is as the entire game is played right now, as the entire thing is set up, that is the job of chiropractic school. Is to help you get the classes you need to pass boards and get your license. That's its responsibility. The idea is to cram in as much chiropractic as you possibly can in the gaps. That's the parallel curriculum, and that can be as simple as reading books, whether it's chiropractic philosophy or other things. And I'm happy to give some recommendations, whether it's going to seminars, listening to talks, getting together, just yourselves and saying, hey, what is principle number 6 that all processes require time? What do you guys think that means? And that can be done at a coffee shop or going out to dinner, or working on how you want your practice to be and envisioning what it's going to look like. And in my opinion, there's a third curriculum, which is the spiritual aspect of chiropractic. And I'm going to come, and before anyone gets weirded out by spiritual, what I mean by that is that hollowing out inner work process that occurs in chiropractic school. It happens to all of us. It is a matter of how conscious we are of it. And if we are conscious of it, it allows us to make different choices and decisions to help facilitate the process. Otherwise, it can look very dramatic, have a lot of trauma, drama, and stress, which I do not want for any of you guys. I want it to be as safe, gentle, and easy as possible. I'm all about safe, gentle, and easy. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. Would anyone else like to ask a question? Otherwise, I know Tyler has a couple, and I know I have a couple that I want to just kind of jam on.
I think you're good to go, full speed ahead. You're hitting the nail on the head here.
Doing my best. So one of the things that Tyler mentioned was how do you have a practice that is based in your philosophy, and really comes to how well do you own the philosophy, science, and art. And here's a sacred aspect of chiropractic. The philosophy, science, and art, we think of them as three very different things. They're not. They're all one thing. It's almost like, how what the difference between the endocrine system, the immune system, and the nervous system is? There isn't one. Or put another way, how many systems are there in the body? One. The rest of everything else is just anatomists trying to divide it up so they can study the cellular structure. There's one. We are one living system. That is chiropractic too. So the philosophy, science, and art, you may have one that you gravitate towards a lot. If that's where your energy naturally goes and you feel alive doing it, then I encourage you to absolutely continue to do that and see if you can use that energy to fuel the others. So, someone who's doing amazing work with regards to the science of chiropractic is Heidi Havoc. Somebody else is John Minardi, Donnie Epstein, Sue Brown. These people were masterful at taking these advanced scientific concepts and making them, in my opinion, much easier to understand. And with the way they're talking about it, if you look at them or read them and really kind of take a step back, it's the same as chiropractic philosophy, which then our art just becomes an application of that. Does that make some sense to everybody? And one other thing, to both Tyler and Nicholas's point, is talking to people in your practice, which is an aspect of training in school that, in my opinion, everyone would do well to focus on a little bit more. It is not nearly as sexy as going to 90 seminars. Trust me on this. However, it is the critical point, because I know amazing chiropractors who, if you lay down on the table, you would see the face of God. It is like being pulverized in light, who have struggled to get people into their practices. It's not that they don't have the skills. The skills are absolutely critical to deliver the goods, and you have to be able to help people find the way to get there and to communicate how you do it. And so there's some key points to this. Number one is the ability to create metaphors and analogies. And this is where, has anyone else ever been frustrated by your parents or friends or siblings? Man, they just don't get it. Anybody else? Okay. We're gonna raise the vibration of this and make this an asset to you. When you're explaining something and you see that glazed over look that you've just word vomited on them and they're not getting it, there's something not clicking, that's the opportunity to either verbally ask them, hey, I'm really trying to get better at explaining what I do. I love what I do, and I really just want to be able to express that to you. What was it that didn't make sense? And hopefully they'll ask you, or hopefully they'll answer you. And then that's an opportunity to develop different metaphors, different analogies, which is a really, it's a valuable skill set to have in practice. So that way, when somebody asks me, what were you feeling? For example, yesterday, I was adjusting a woman, and C2 was the anchor point for a deep subluxation pattern in the system. I adjusted it supine from the left. Partial clearing, did not fully clear. Adjusted it from the right supine. Partial clearing, did not fully release. I'm adjusting different aspects of the subluxation pattern each time. And then I had her sit up, and I adjusted it one more time with a seated adjustment. And then I had to take a deep breath using a light force contact of the spinous. And that was when the entire nervous system shifted. And her husband's watching me. And he's kind of giving me that look of like, he knew something happened. He's like, what was all that? The analogy I used was, because they've got kids. I think between the two of them, they've got 10 kids. They know what they're doing in that area. And I said, you ever try and open up a kid's toy, and it's got those like little tiny zip ties in like 3 different areas, and you got to like undo that one, like undo the twist tie, and then right by the on switch, there's that little tiny like piece of paper, plastic that you got to pull out before it'll actually turn on. He goes, yeah, totally. That's what that was. It was a turning on in multiple steps. He just goes, oh, okay, cool. Which is it's a really fun analogy. And I'd be willing to bet that he had a much deeper understanding about chiropractic, about anatomy, about the connection of the body after that analogy. So that is a key skill set to work on developing. For anyone who is dating someone not in chiropractic, it is a gold mine, because if you are, you have word vomited on them. You have come home so pumped and so excited, and you've just emotionally thrown up on them in excitement. And you really want them to get it, right? You really want them to be as excited as you are, or at least somewhat. This is where you can build this skill set easily. And with someone who, loves you and wants to help you and is in support of you. Does that make some sense to everybody? So that's one aspect of communication. Another aspect of communication that's really, I think, important to work on is being able to communicate to multiple. Oh, bye, John. It's so good seeing you, brother. Is learning how to communicate and connect with different personality types. So one of the avenues towards communication that I really enjoy is called Enneagram. It means graph, or a symbol made of 9 things. The reason I like it in terms of looking at personality is that it's meant to be fluid. It's meant to be flexible. It's not a set thing. We all have all aspects of all 9 personalities. Most of us will have one that is more our core one, and we all have a way that we integrate, and we all have a way that we disintegrate. I will use myself as an example. I am a 2 in the Enneagram world. What that means is I'm known as the helper. For any of you who know me, this will not come as a surprise. I am image-driven and relatively compliant. I'm not exceptionally assertive. I'm not exceptionally withdrawn. I'm right in the middle, and I can go either direction when needed. When I'm unhealthy at a personality ego level, I will act very anger-driven. I will be very assertive. I might get a point across, but it really screws up my relationships. Knowing that about myself, I can then choose to use that aspect, that assertive, challenging role, in a conscious way. I can do it for short bursts when appropriate. If I didn't know that about myself, it'd be very easy for me to become unconscious and slip into using it. And I did that for a good chunk of chiropractic school. Things worked. Relationships didn't very well. So knowing that, I can also know how to communicate differently to different people. Knowing when someone's really analytical versus a driver versus amiable versus expressive. I can shift my communication, which allows me to not have a script. I have a basic outline. Someone comes into for their first visit, I have sort of a basic outline of some of the things I might talk about or might cover, but it allows me to know which analogy is appropriate, which explanation of chiropractic is most appropriate. Do I need to do things more visually? Will they need to listen to things more? If I can pick up on the fact, do they process and integrate the new information quickly or slowly? That changes things. Does that make sense to everybody? And so my encouragement is to get together and practice with each other. It's awkward. It's very awkward. Do it anyway. And as you're doing it, figure out, why do I feel awkward doing this? Is it that I'm saying something because I heard Nate say it, or I heard Arno say it, or I heard somebody else say it, but it's not really authentic to me yet? Or is it just that I'm not feeling grounded? I'm not feeling connected. What is it that I really need to do to really increase my connection here? which leads me back to another something that I meant to say earlier, because I put a pin in it, is that from where I'm sitting, chiropractic is a spiritual practice. It is a sacred calling. And I really love the definition that Brene Brown came up with for spirituality. If you don't know Brene Brown, I would highly recommend checking her out. She's on YouTube. She's on Netflix. She's got a number of books. There's the book recommendation. Her definition of spirituality that emerged from her research of talking to people is a deeply held belief and celebration of the inextricable connection between all people that is grounded in compassion and love. With that definition, that can be applied to anything. For some people, that is fishing. For some people, it is playing with their kids. For some people, it is being in church. For some people, it is getting together for a campfire. Very early on, someone explained chiropractic to me that way when I was in school. That chiropractic is less about restoring people to what they used to be, but helping people fully evolve through the process of their life. Almost like the completion of a learning process, where some experience, trauma, stress, something got stored up and locked into the physiology, into the neurology, into the energetic system of the body. And through communicating with them, the art form, the science, and the groundedness of the philosophy, we get to give people a second chance to fully experience their life. And Nash, I just saw your message, and have a great day, sir, if you're still on. Don't know if you are. Let's let that settle. Let that sink in for a minute. That was good. Did anyone else have any other questions? Any questions that came up, or shall I keep waxing philosophical?
Talk a little bit about intention.
Yeah, thank you. That was something we talked about earlier. Thank you. So I think the clarity of intention we have with people is exceptionally is a crucial element to what we do. And here's the funny part about that. I'm going to share a story from one of my closest mentors and teachers in chiropractic, named Susan Rossi. Some of you may know her, and for those of you who haven't met her or done any work with her, highly recommended. She is one of those people who, when I laid on their table, I felt a deep alignment, not only of my spine, but of my being. And it was for me, when I met her, it was very much like a moment in Doctor Strange, where the Ancient One punches him through the dimensions and he lands back into his body. It's just like, teach me. So I went to school. I continued to learn from her, and I wound up being her peak student, which is the internship program that Life University has. And I asked her one of my first days there, Dr. Rossi, what's your intention when you're working with someone? And I'm thinking that she's going to talk about different dimensions and structures and sacred geometry. And I'm thinking this, and I've been waiting to ask her this question for years. And she looks at me and goes, I don't have one. Which really flipped a circuit in my brain. It was like something, it was very much that moment of deer in the headlights, something does not compute. And she calmly says, I become that hollow bone. So that when I'm in service with someone, it is coming through me. Just to bring it back to adjusting, that's something all of us on the call have been learning to do. We've all had the experience both receiving an adjustment or giving an adjustment where it feels like we're pushing. It's a very forceful thing. We probably also had the experience of giving an adjustment that feels like it's coming from me, that it's a gift that I'm giving to them. And those who are truly masterful in their approach, it comes through them. And there are moments that I will set a very clear intention with someone, either verbally or non-verbally, with them when they lay on my table. With regards to working with people, If you guys haven't caught on yet, I'm very much advocating for learning how to work with people and to connect with people at deeper levels. It's all about having agreements. What is the agreement I have with this person? When I adjust someone for the first time, usually the first couple times, sometimes it might be the 100th time I've adjusted them, I will say, I'm going to adjust here. Is that okay? I'm going to adjust here. I'm going to contact this area. I'm going to work here. I'm playing a boundaries game with them, and I'm making sure we have an agreement on things. Does that make sense? Because the body keeps the score, and the body always wins. The body holds, when we touch someone, we are touching every trauma, every upset, every emotional outburst, every stress that they have had and that they have not moved through. And we are also touching that soul that has shown up in this body in this moment and has asked us to help them. So there's a lot going on here. So having both a clear intention and letting go of how that comes to pass it's a dance. It's a dance that happens, and it gets better and better over time, ideally. So, you guys want to talk about subluxation for a little bit? Could be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, cool. There are countless models of how to look at subluxation. Anyone else ever felt overwhelmed by them all? There's the CSF flow aspect. There's the affrontation-disaffrontation theory. There's the adverse mechanical cord tension. There's the way Gonstead viewed it, and Thompson viewed it, and BJ viewed it, and then how BJ viewed it, and then how BJ viewed it for a third time, and then the final one he got to before he died, which probably would have shifted again had he not died. There's so many different models of how to look at this. What if they were all right? What if they all were accessing a piece of it? What if the way Gonstead looked at it actually correlated with how Donnie Epstein looked at it? With how BJ looked at it? With how Dee Dee looked at it? What if they all were accessing a piece of it based on their own mastery, their own personality, the way that their spirit was working through them in that moment, and all of their life experience? There are days in practice that someone will come in, and the way I'm adjusting them is very much about the biomechanics and their gait pattern, and that's what's the window into their system that I'm really using for them that day. And then the next person, I might be doing a lot of low force adjusting to the correlates that Sue Brown mapped out of the sacred geometry of the biotensivity of the body and bringing in quantum physics. And the next person, I might be doing I might only do an upper cervical toggle adjustment because that's what's most appropriate for them. And when I'm working with the biomechanics, am I not also affecting the sacred geometry, the tensegrity, the meningeal torque, and vice versa? When I'm clearing the upper cervical area, or when I'm making a low force contact at T6 as a way of unwinding a soft tissue pattern, that soft tissue subluxation pattern, won't that also improve the biomechanics? So in other words, what I'm getting at is that there's a way of viewing it all with a grace for all of it. In my opinion, a challenge that can occur when we become too attached to one technique, one viewpoint, one window into chiropractic is that it becomes the only way we think about it, the only way we can think about it, which then leads to challenges with our chiropractic community and also may limit our ability to serve. So that's my perspective with regards to it. So that being said, I'm not going about my day completely willy-nilly. It's developing a synthesis between your intellect, the analyses we use, the ways of viewing things, and our intuition, and building them both and having a dynamic dance between the two of them. It's with regards to the different viewpoints on subluxation, it reminds me of the analogy I have for spirituality and religion. And if this doesn't work for you, then by all means, after I'm done saying it, go back, hit delete. I will not take it. Please feel free. The way I view things is that imagine a river, deep river, miles deep, miles long, and along the river there's a number of tribes. And each tribe comes down to the river with their pot, with their jar, with their satchel, with whatever, to collect water. And they go back into the village. The containers are all different. The water's still the same. So, kind of going back to our discussion, talking about intention. My intention when I work with people, a intention I hold, is to help them have a clear expression of their life. An intention is to help clear the nervous system of interference. Intention is to help them come back to a harmony and a balance in themselves. To let go of the stuff they've been carrying around. How I do that changes moment to moment and person to person. This comes from Wade Port. That's who I first heard it from, which is that you have all heard the expression, what we see more of, what we focus on more, we get more of. So if you're practicing from a very restorative place, trying to fight disease or degeneration, likely you'll see more of it. If you're focusing so heavily on subluxation, you'll likely see more of it. If you focus on the light within the person and enhancing that, you'll likely see more of it. So rather than being a pain-based chiropractor or a subluxation-based chiropractor, I do my best to be a clear-based chiropractor, which then allows me to pull from any of the techniques, any of the approaches that I've learned. And I've also put in the effort, the time, the energy to have a very strong foundation and skill set to be able to connect with people, connect with their system, use different analyses when I need to, and to also build the trust in myself that when I'm called to adjust C2 on the left with a laterality distortion that is hooking in through the sacrum, that is affecting these things that I'm perceiving, or when I'm just called here, there's bound up light and energy here, that I can trust that. And Nicholas asked me 4 days ago when we started this call that, what is it about MLS that is my foundation? One of the many things that we focus on, that we train with regard in the MLS approach, is building that trust, creating and building that trust in life. And y'all, okay, if we get a little real for a second, life has been a little stressful lately. I know, yeah. Elizabeth's over here like, what? How do we hold that place of trust? And how do we get back to it? Because we're all human. We will all slip. It's a matter of how far do we slip and how do we check back. Anyone who's been to the MLS seminar, which I think is everybody on the call, we do the entire seminar, for the most part, in silence for 2.5 days, 2 days. It's not because we don't want to have community and talking. It's to be able to develop that ability to be still and to go within and to listen to what we're feeling, allow it to have its voice, allow it to have its turn to talk, and then to let it calm down, let it integrate. So that way we can approach the person, come to the person that we're serving, or come to life in a clear state, in a state based out of love. And that way, ideally, we can help them raise their vibration to that place too. Gang, I don't know of a time in human history that it has been more important to be good at what we do in that regard. Kennedy, hi, Kennedy. Were you raising your hand or were you just waving?
No, I was raising my hand.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I have a question. So I've read a lot about, the connections between lung pathology and grief lately. So, not really looking for it, but how do we address that when we're with our patients who, a lot of us are silent carriers of this, respiratory virus is very connected to the lungs. And how do you suggest we keep our patients safe and keep ourselves safe while we help integrate and then dissipate that grief that they're experiencing?
Got it. It's funny. I was listening to a coaching call that my coach did earlier today, and she was talking about grief, and right before this, so I knew it was going to come up. I just didn't know how. So thank you. So there's a number of different aspects to Kennedy's question. Number one is in practice, just practically, what do we do? And I will not speak for anyone but myself, because I know I have dear friends who decided to close their offices right now. I have dear friends who were forced by the state they live in to close their offices right now. And I also have dear friends who, like me, are choosing to stay open right now. It's a combination of both the outer face of our practice and also what do I need to, for me, it's what do I need to do to continue to serve people? So for me, I wear a mask. I found some woodworking glasses. I wear those most of the days. When I have gloves, I use them. Is it completely necessary? Honestly, I don't know. However, I have had people not come in, not only thank me for being open, but they have thanked me for sending out an email saying, I'm cleaning the tables, I'm wearing a mask, I'm doing all these things, I've changed a lot of the different protocols in my practice in terms of just the physical structures and the organization of things. My normal flow is I'll have 3 tables in an open room. I have 1 table in there at a time. I'm adjusting 1 person at a time. I have a parking lot reception system, so I have everybody text me when they get there, and I tell them when it's their turn to come in. I've used more Clorox wipes in the past month than I ever thought possible. I wipe them down after every single person, all of these things. It's a matter of what is the perception and what is the reality. Perception has completely overtaken any aspect of reality right now. This, in my opinion, is not the time, especially when this all first started, when the shelter in place happened, when everybody was sent home from work and everything like that, was not the time to try and have an in-depth conversation about the immune function. We're getting to that point. We can. I'm sure all of us on the call, we can feel it bubbling. We can see it coming down the road. This was, I felt, remember, and back to the conversation we had earlier, love or fear. Everyone was in fear. Mm-hmm. It's a matter. Imagine an incredibly storming sea.
Yeah.
Waves 100 feet tall. Gale storm winds. Many people feel like they're being drowned by the waves. Some of us are learning how to surf. I wanted to make my office a lighthouse on the shore for people to find their way out of the storm. That was what I chose to do with my practice, with how I set things up. And it changes day to day, week to week. We're in a very, y'all have heard the quote, there's no constant in life but change. Well, that's where we're at right now. We are living proof of that right now. So I've given myself the permission to change it day by day. And for all I know, tomorrow I may make the call, you know what, I'm going to close for a week. I don't know yet. I haven't gotten there yet. So that's a aspect, just with the practicality of taking care of people right now. Does that help, Kennedy?
Can I jump in quick? So a lot of people know my background, like what I used to do before chiropractic school. So to Kennedy, it is, if you read like Chinese medicine or like Ayurvedic and stuff, they do say that lung conditions is caused by sadness and grief. And if you look into the 5-element theory, the emotion of fear or lack would actually cause it not to support or energize the lung, which would then cause sadness and grief. So yes, the biggest issue right now is fear that is disharmonizing the sadness and grief causing lung pathology. If you study like all this ancient work, our forefathers have been very brilliant, and there's nothing to reinvent the wheel because they already have figured everything out. Truth at the end of the day.
Nicholas, may I just say, mwah, that was beautiful. Which leads us into the next part of this. Next part of how I want to answer Kennedy's question. Many of us, myself included, are processing grief right now. There is a grief for how life used to be, for how school used to be for you, for how practice used to be, for being able so my love language, if you haven't, here's another book recommendation, 5 Love Languages. It's absolutely amazing. My primary one is touch. And very early, usually at the end of the first or second visit, I will ask people, if I feel that there's a window for it, hey, are you huggable? And then if they say yes, I'll say, may I have one? And if they hesitate anyway, I say, don't worry about it. How about a fist bump or a handshake? I have had grief over not seeing the people in my practice, and I love the people I take care of, and not getting to. And when the people do come in, not getting to hug them. The elbow thing that everybody's doing, like the elbow bump or whatever. I had an older married couple come in, and we all did that at the same time. And the wife said, "Group hug," which was funny and sad. And so there's a lot of grief that's going on, and luckily, a lot of people have mapped out the stages of grief. A lot of our chiropractic brothers and sisters are getting very angry right now and expressing that on social media. And just with regards, again, to practicality, my encouragement is to treat Facebook like a cocktail party. You can have deep, amazing conversations about high-level stuff at cocktail parties, and there's a way of approaching it that is not antagonistic. Make sense? So just something to keep in mind. So it's a matter of processing so you asked about how do we help people who on a deep level may be processing grief through their lungs. There's a universal law of equalities. This universal law establishes the principle of correspondence. And I'm going to make it and to make all those words very simple, as above, so below, as within, so without. If I'm seeing something in my outer world, it is a reflection of something in my inner world. What aspect of myself is still grieving? What repressed grief do I have? How well am I using my lungs? How fully am I? Lungs also have to deal with participation in life. When I have someone lay on my table, or I see someone breathing like this, to me, that's a very clear signal that they're having difficulty fully participating in their life. What can I do to more fully enhance my participation in my life? How do I process my grief that I may be holding on to? And we're really not meant to do it alone. That's part of why this is so challenging. We're social animals. We're social creatures. We do good in groups. And frankly, we're not supposed to there's a lot of beauty that can come out of healing when you do it by yourself, but there's also a lot of beauty that can come from healing when you do it in a group. So this is where it becomes very important to lean on your friends, to call your friends, and just be like, I need to vent for 5 minutes. Or, and be honest about it. And it's also a matter of having perspective. We can have perspective. I can vent about the annoyances or what I'm angry about or what I'm bargaining with or things like that, while also acknowledging I have it, with perspective that, my life is still really good, and needing to also vent these things and process this deep emotion. The other aspect of all this is that we live in a culture that is very masculine, very do, very outward, and constant movement. One of the things is we live in a world of duality. And we're really seeing a beautiful resurgence of the feminine right now, which has to do with stillness and being. For myself, about a week ago, I came home from my office and was freaked out and had anxiety and was just processing a lot. And my wonderful girlfriend helped me see that I was trying to do way too much. And it was like trying to swim upstream. So it's a matter of how do I allow myself the stillness and the peace and the ease to just be with it. And then how do I process my own emotions? How do I have the peace and the stillness and the presence with myself? Part of the reason that I can have someone come in and bawl in my arms is because I've allowed myself to bawl in my arms. In general, as healers, we can't take anyone further than we either have gone or are willing to go. So this is a phenomenal time to if there's a book you've really been wanting to read. Most of us have some time right now, or there's something that you really want to do, like a side project or a project or something. Great. And if you don't have any drive to do it, or don't have any, just can't muster the energy to do it, you're not doing anything wrong. You're allowed to just be with it and process it. It's an opportunity that likely won't come again in our lifetime, to have this much stillness. And so my encouragement is to, if you feel the urge to do a lot of stuff, cool. Make sure it's coming from, because that you have the energy flowing in that direction, not because it's your default, not because it's feel like what you have to be doing or what you should be doing. In other words, stop shoulding on yourselves. Does that help, Kennedy?
Yeah, it helps a lot. So I start work on Monday, actually.
Great.
Super excited. Only a month late. But yeah, just, and it's funny that you said you're a clear-based chiropractor, or you have a clear view, because clear was my 2020 word.
We set this up. Our souls have been arranging this perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, when Nicholas said that he was having you on, I was like, oh my God, I have to be there.
I'm glad.
But yeah, I guess I have another question. So I have been doing almost like the absolute bare minimum, and it has been a little stressful because you're used to just going and doing and being around people and having all of these plans, and just having absolutely nothing to do is a little stressful.
Mm-hmm. And you just graduated school, which is a four-year marathon. It's like the joke for any of us who went to life is that, it was 11-week quarters. So it's like that line from Fast and the Furious. I live my life 11 weeks at a time, and doing that over and over and over again. So this is a very big shift for you.
Yeah, everything kind of all happened at once. I graduated on February 28th, and then March 24th. March 24th was Michigan's shelter-in-place law. So I had about a month to do stuff. Of which, I toured offices, met people, and set up a job, and then didn't have that job, and then had the job again, and now I'm going to start. Anyway, that's beside the point. So for those of us who do have lots of time on our hands, who may not be in school anymore, and also may not be working 40 hours a week yet, do you have a list of resources that you have leaned on in harder times, or do you have a list of it doesn't even have to just be books or podcasts or anything, impactful music that you like, or artists that you follow on Instagram, or just different ways that we can experience and take in knowledge that doesn't have to be all about chiropractic or all about science or all about
absolutely
18 ways to knit a hat, bake bread or do whatever. Sometimes I just want to read a book and have it be nice.
So I'll answer this, and then if Zach is up for it, I'd love to have him share too. It kind of depends. With regards to chiropractic resources, especially right now, because so many people are lovingly donating their stuff, putting their stuff online, really all you have to do is ask, and there'll be tons of resources. When I graduated chiropractic school, I had an everything breakdown. It was not a nervous breakdown. It was like my body was exhausted. My emotions were erratic. My mind could not focus worth a darn. And my soul had this powerful calling it could finally fulfill. And my ego could not hold on to reality to make it happen. So I hibernated for 6 weeks. For me, the first couple days, I laid on my couch, drooled into my pillow, and watched How I Met Your Mother for the 100th time. I could quote the whole show to you if you wanted me to at the time, but that was a way that I found to gently and easily just let myself rest. It's cave time, which is a really important thing, to allow ourselves that time. So, my advice on this would be take it sort of day by day. What does your body need you to do? Just get real quiet with yourself for a moment and ask body, what do you need me to do? What do you need? Is it going for a walk? Is it going for a run? Is it exercising? Is it sitting here playing video games? Is it baking, cupcakes and eating all of them? Allow yourself to process that. For me, I really like binge watching sitcoms. My girlfriend and I are currently on season 5 of Gilmore Girls. It's great. A lot of drama in its own right, and I yell at Rory once an episode, but that's not the point. The movie, interesting enough, a movie that came to mind when you were saying that was the movie About Time. It is on Netflix. It's a family drama, comedy, time travel movie. It's great. I don't know why that came to mind, but check it out. If you like it, great. If not, no worries. There are versions of entertainment to use right now that are higher vibrational. Playing Call of Duty might not be the most high vibrational thing. Watching the Legend of Bagger Vance, highly recommended, and you'll see a lot of parallels between that and chiropractic. So, Kennedy, I trust you. I trust you'll know kind of what that is. I'm right now reading a bunch of Brene Brown because I have time to read this book, and this book happens to all about how do you rise up after a fall. I didn't plan on reading this book. It jumped off the shelf at me, and here I am. I also have Harry Potter on the shelf, which I love rereading. So, it's a matter of how do you find ways of connecting to your higher purpose, to your highest of selves in these moments. And, one of the stages of grief, which I think we're all processing a little bit. And, Kennedy, may I speak openly about you for a second? You might be processing a little bit of grief about no longer being a student, which I know sounds so counterintuitive, especially to those of you in school. I totally understand how that sounds completely, bass backwards. And from my experience, it happens. And depression is a part of it. Depression, in my opinion, is the modern day equivalent of hibernating. The problem becomes when we resist it and don't allow ourselves to fully experience the emotion of it and move through it. And when we resist it or become attached to it. So with regards to that, whatever emotion you're feeling, it's how do you not even say, I am, in this case, depressed. I have depression. Just, I'm experiencing this right now, and I'm going to let myself feel it for a little bit. And then when I move on to a new emotion, it's how do I let myself feel that? And how do I let myself really rest? A sixth stage of grief is finding meaning. And as chiropractors, we all really like that step. That's the step we want to jump to. I mean, what did we start talking about? The high levels of philosophy here, the meaning behind everything we do. We have to also work our way there, work our way through the muck, through the mud. We can't skip that part, that process, that part of the process. Does that help? Zach, if you're up for unmuting yourself, I'd love for you to talk about this part too, or anything else that you want to chime in with.
Sure.
Everybody, this is Zach Thomas, my dear friend and brother from Ohio. Zach, go ahead. I came in a little late, buddy. What was the actual question? I think I got the gist of it by your answer, but what was the question? Kennedy, go for it.
Sorry, my daughter is sitting next to me. You will probably hear her talking.
Oh, that's sweet. No, so my question was like, what do you have like a list of resources or something that you gravitate toward in times of stress or times of extra rest or extra time, just like now, what's happening now?
So I've actually really been into watching some of the chef and cooking shows on Netflix. My wife loves to make fun of me for it, but I love them. And it's also really cool because I love them because it's art. It's watching an artist to me, right? A high level chef at a 1, 2, 3-star Michelin restaurant is an artist. And to just watch these episodes and hear these people and the way that they talk about food and the way they talk about preparing it and the deep love and appreciation that they have, not only for the food, but for preparing it and for the people they are preparing it for, right? It's just like a really cool way. So I've been enjoying that in just a way to see other artists in their craft, right? And just kind of seeing how they do that. So that's been a really cool thing. The two that I really like are, what's it called? Ugly Delicious is one, which is really cool. That's a really good one. And then Chef's Table is another really good one too. As far as Netflix goes, it's probably the only thing I got like watching anything. I don't watch a ton of stuff. My go-to, to be honest, is always journaling. It's how I process things. It's something I found out in chiropractic school. I was never a journaler before chiropractic school. I didn't really, I never did it, right? But when I got to chiropractic school and you started learning more about it, by the time I finished chiropractic, so the 4 years, I was at Life for almost 4 years. I was a quarter shy of 4 years. I think I finished like 5 like journals that were like this thick each, right? And I still have them, and I still go back and reread them time to time and kind of remind myself of the thoughts and things that I had, right? But even now, to share a little bit, grief. And Nate, I don't know exactly what it was, whatever you said, but made me think of something. I think it was something along the lines of processing grief. At the end of 2018, the Christmas of 2018, my wife and I actually had a late-term miscarriage, our daughter, and that was it threw us for a loop. There was a lot of stuff that we had to process, but that also that experience kind of threw me back into my journaling and really how I could process grief, right? And I'm on this call and realizing again by something Nate said, I believe, just realizing like, wow, like I've been feeling a little drained, like my energy's a little off, like I feel more short-tempered than usual. And I don't think I've met any of you yet personally, but Nate can attest to it. I'm usually a pretty laid-back person. So for me being short-tempered, I know that there's something a little off. And I'm just starting to realize like, wow, like I think I have more work there. There's some things that apparently I haven't fully processed yet. So tomorrow morning when I wake up and go through my morning flow, that'll probably be what I journal on tomorrow morning and what's there and what do I need to continue to do, right? Yeah, because as much as I thought, oh man, like I'm good. Like I've journaled on that topic for almost a year and have a piece of a book written on that subject. and I still have stuff left to process about it. Right. So it's just an ongoing process. And I think, Nate, you said it too, is you're going to find what works for you. Right. I believe, if you're on this call, have been to MLS or in the structure of MLS, you have tapped in and learned to listen, right? Not only listen to the person on the table, but listen to yourself and learn what your cues are and learn how to best support yourself, right? And I am a self-proclaimed self-development junkie. I have all the books and all the things, and it was my dear friend, also a friend of Nate's, David Lutz, who is also a chiropractor, that ever so lovingly one time told me, "What the fuck are you doing with all of it? You're reading all these books, but you're not going anywhere. So what good is it doing?" Right? It's just like, oh, got it. Like, okay, so just the rapid consumption of information isn't always the best thing for ourselves, right? Sometimes we have to maybe slow down, focus on a topic, learn a little bit, and then move on, right? So to answer your question, I guess that's kind of my answer. But I also think everybody's going to be a little bit different, right? And you just kind of have to honor your process in the moment and what you know to be best, right? And it's going to change.
And Zach, can I piggyback off or jump out? Use something you said as a springboard?
Please.
Is my belief that whenever we have to work on the most in ourselves, do the most work on healing ourselves, as we continue to heal and become more whole, that becomes our mastery to help others. So all the work that Zach is doing on grief that he talked about, he will be a master grief healer. People will come out of the woodwork, with a headache or back pain or whatever it is that gets them into the office, and they'll come to him specifically. They won't even know why. They're so gravitated towards it because that is one of his masteries. So whatever that is for you, whatever you feel like your tunnel of fire is, on the other side is a whole other world of expression of yourself, of your calling, and it may become part of that expression of that. The other thing he said, the self-help, the inner work, self-growth, spirit, junkie. I can attest to that. I'm one. I'm a recovering one. There's an aspect of chiropractic, of inner work, of growth that we're all doing right now. It's called shadow processing, which is when we go, I'll use chiropractic seminars as a fun example because everybody on the call can relate. You go to a seminar, you feel fully alive. You feel such a connection to who you are and to chiropractic and to your purpose on this earth and your why, and you feel more empowered to do it. And then 3 days later, you feel like absolute shit. You're exhausted, you're tired, your emotions are going haywire, you don't know why, what the heck happened? When we have an experience where light comes in, which ideally is what happens at an amazing seminar, a concert, a time in nature, it flushes up our own inner shadow, whatever we haven't processed and looked at. And then we get to integrate that. We get to bring those parts of ourselves, those components of our soul, of our emotions, of our mind, of our belief systems, we get to reintegrate them, bring them home, make ourselves more whole. And then we expand. And then more light can come in. And that flushes up more shadow. And the gift we get is to be able to process that shadow. And we call someone who has processed all of their shadow enlightened. That's the definition. It's part of the dynamic dance of being human. And one of the things that MLS has stood for since its inception in the 1980s is that who you are as a person supersedes who you are as a chiropractor. The level of dedication we show to our craft, to our art, to showing up for ourselves, for showing up for other people. informs who we are and how we operate as a chiropractor. And sometimes that looks like waking up, having a ritual, doing push-ups, sit-ups, planks, practicing the cervical arcs, practicing your side posture drops, doing the pec flicks, doing the tricep flicks, meditating, praying, journaling, all these wonderful things. And sometimes it looks like watching a movie on Netflix just to let yourself have the time to process. It's a dance between these two parts of the duality. And when we're able to more easily do that dance, we get to be right in the middle, where we're not lost in shadow and we're not addicted to the light. We're in the center, where source lives, where the divine lives. And we get to utilize all aspects of that for ourselves, for the people we serve, so that way chiropractic can fulfill its intended promise, which was to help people access more of their infinite potential, their infinite light. Or put another way, put a way that one of my closest mentors phrased it one time: the world does not need to be saved. The world needs to wake up. And chiropractic was brought to this planet to facilitate our awakening, our evolution, and our healing. So part of the way that I define healing is a bringing of self home. A way I view subluxation is it is the physiological, energetic placeholder for a part of ourselves that got lost in time, that is not part of present time, and that got fractured off. It is the physiologic, energetic placeholder for it. By clearing those, it allows those parts of us to come home. Nicholas early on asked me, why do I keep going to MLS? Why do I now serve, on staff for MLS? Because it beautifully stands for the potential that is within each of us, for the potential of what chiropractic can be for us as people, for us as chiropractors, for the people we serve, for humanity at large, so that way we can begin to come home and continue that process with safety, gentleness, and ease, and maybe a little bit of fun along the way. So that seems like a good place to kind of call it a night.
Powerful stuff.
I do what I can. I'm going to offer myself as support to y'all. I realize, right now is a challenging time, and regular times can be challenging too. Myself and the other MLS staff and the community, we're here to support you. And I want you to all please remember that you are loved, you are appreciated, you are enough. One of the things we often talk about is, how do I know that I can take care of someone who's on my table? If I couldn't take care of them, they wouldn't be on my table. So just keep that in mind. Life is happening for all of us, not to any of us. So when the situation comes up in life, just like when someone lays on our table, there's some aspect of it that is working for us. So I hope life works for you in a gentle, easy way. If there's any way that I can be of support to you through that process, as you're finishing up school, getting into practice, please let me know. And if I feel that I'm not the right person, or that there's someone else who may be more helpful for you to talk to, I will happily get you to them. Excuse me. So, yeah. And if you're not friends with me on Facebook, please add me, and you can message me on there if you need to. Post in the MLS community page, the MLS Members Lounge community page on Facebook. I imagine Zach would be okay with me volunteering him that if you need support, to talk to him too. I got the thumbs up from the man. So yeah. Anyone else have anything else that they absolutely want to ask before we close the night? Cool. Well, thank you all so much for being here, and thank you all for showing up as chiropractors and most importantly as yourselves.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to live where soul meets body, and let the sun wrap its arms around